There's a lot to know about Summoner's War, and this is by no means a comprehensive guide, but hopefully some of the things we go over today will help you to avoid some heartbreak down the road. Let's jump right into things with number 1. Number 1, do not use your crystals for anything other than refilling your energy. It can be really tempting to use your crystals to buy premium packs and get those extra mystical scrolls. But luckily for us, Come To Us is pretty generous with new player events, and you're going to end up with a lot of mystical scrolls just by playing through some of the progression guides that they provide in-game. And because they are so generous with mystical scrolls early in the game, that brings us to number 2 on our list. My second tip for new summoners is not to over-summon early game. It can be really tempting to use all of the mystical scrolls that you receive from the tutorial and just from playing in general and completing your events. But eventually, and when I say eventually, I mean pretty soon, you're going to end up with way more monsters than you're going to be able to build. And you're not going to have enough runes to use them all effectively. Early game, save those scrolls and focus on building a few key units that we'll discuss a little bit later. Tip number 3 is not to use the monsters that you do summon from your unknown scrolls to level up other monsters. The game is going to give you a monster that we'll call Lapis, which is her awakened name, and this monster is going to be really good for farming experience pretty early on. So, not only is it wasteful to use your 1 and 2 star monsters for experience, but it also gets really expensive really fast, and you're going to have a good way to build up experience on your monsters pretty early game. My fourth tip is going to be around using those monsters that you do summon in an efficient way. And that tip is to save your monsters when necessary for skill ups. You can increase the skills on one of your monsters by feeding it another monster in that same family. For example, if I take my wind pixie, Shannon, and I feed her another pixie, a water pixie, a wind pixie, any type of pixie is fine, it will increase the skill on one of her moves. Part 2 of this little tip is not to use any of your devil mons right now. You're going to want to use your devil mons on monsters that are hard to acquire doubles of. And since they're the most valuable resource in the game, you don't want to waste them. They're hard to come by. Don't waste all of your monsters in skill ups though. Tip number 5 is to make sure that you keep at least 1 copy of every non-farmable monster. What that means is that if your monster is a natural 3-star monster or above, you're going to want to save at least 1 copy for it. Even if everything you Google and look up about the monster says that it's useless or says that it's food, there are updates to the game all the time. And it's going to be heartbreaking if a couple months down the road, Come To Us comes out with an update that makes a monster really great and you remember that you fed a bunch of them away as skill ups. In that same vein, you're going to want to save 1 copy of every single light and dark monster that you get in the game. They are much harder to come by, even the 2 and 3 star ones, and you don't want to waste them. Speaking of saving monsters, tip number 6 is to take a look at monsters after you summon them and see if they are fusion material. If the monster has this little gold symbol next to it, that's how you'll know it's a fusion monster. These monsters can be used to create stronger monsters, and you definitely don't want your progress to be delayed because you fed a monster that you needed for a fusion. Just put them in your monster storage and hold on to them until you're ready to use them. Tip number 7 goes hand in hand with our fusion material, and that's that the first monster you need to fuse is going to be the Dark Ifrit, called Veramos. Veramos is an extremely useful monster, and he's really versatile as well. You'll be able to use him in multiple areas in the game, and we'll build our first few teams around him. Definitely don't delay fusing Veramos. You'll be able to get some of the fusion materials for him from one of your new player events, and you'll be able to farm the Dark Yeti that you need for him in the Dark Dungeon. Tip number 8 is going to be prioritizing a specific set of monsters early game. These monsters include the Dark Ifrit, Veramos, the Wind Pixie, Shannon, who's a Nat 2 that you'll be able to farm really easily, the Wind Griffin, Bernard, you'll be able to farm him from the Tamor Desert, the Light Inugami, Beladion, who you'll be able to get from the Light Secret Dungeon, and Lapis, your Water Knight that you'll receive from the in-game tutorial. Tip number 9 is that the first monster you 6-star should be Veramos. You should be able to farm pretty efficiently with Lapis even at 5-star. So bring her up to 5-star and save your materials to get your Ifrit to a 6-star almost as soon as you get him. And the last tip that I have for you, tip number 10, is that early in the game there will be an event offered to you. This event is called the New User Event, and it's going to give you the opportunity to summon any natural 4-star monster that you need. You should put all of your points into summoning the wind monsters, and when he pops up, you're going to want to choose Lucian. Lucian is the Wind Joker, and he is going to be an extremely useful monster for you in a lot of areas of the game. So getting him early and building him is going to be really helpful. Those are my 10 tips for new summoners, and I hope that you found at least some of them useful. Good luck on your summoning journey. Check back regularly for new videos, and don't forget to like and subscribe.